government under the presidency of President Bokai in the areas of the economy, the rule of law and governance, corruption and accountability, foreign relations, education, health, infrastructure, agriculture, security, the Bokai's administration's arrest agenda for inclusive development, among others. 1. The economy. Members of the press and fellow Liberians, contrary to President Bokai's boast of a better economy, the Liberian economy over the course of its first year has subjected more Liberians to poverty due to mass corruption, grave fraudulent actions, economic inequality, gross incompetence, and bad governance. It is abundantly clear that Liberia is getting drawn into an economic abyss on every passing day. It is ridiculous and mocking to the Liberian people for President Bokai to state in the Senate that the Liberian economy is better now than when he took over the Liberian government. President Bokai showed great disregard for the socio-economic conditions of suffering Liberians. The economic conditions of Liberia under the Bokai-led administration is gradually going to the point where people will start falling for hunger. In fact, most strongly disagrees that the economy is improving when the exchange rate and prices of commodities continue to surge as the situation has been over the past year of the Bokai's administration with no relief or improvement in sight. How could President Bokai deceive the people of a low inflation rate when the exchange rate has skyrocketed to 200? How could President Bokai falsely claim that the price of rice has reduced when the price of the country's staple food is currently at nearly $20 or its equivalent in Liberian dollars? How could President Bokai speak of a better economy when there has been no new foreign direct investment for job creation since he took office? How could President Bokai say the economy is resilient and better today when unemployment are rising to about 96% and the poverty gap has widened? How could President Bokai boast of an economy where purchasing power for Liberians has significantly reduced, with ordinary marketers complaining on a daily basis across Liberia? The move also wants to expose another inconsistency in President Bokai's sonnet when he told Liberians and the world that the administration trained 10,000 Liberian youths into information communication technology, ICT, and cybersecurity. How could 10,000 Liberian youths be trained in ICT and cybersecurity in 10 days? In fact, we are left baffled as to how these ICT and cybersecurity trainees were recruited, where, and how they were trained. The movement for economic empowerment considers it despicable for President Bokai to boast of increasing revenue when the national budgets have become a source of care distribution among top officials of government. The first year budget for President Bokai in 2024 was US $738 million, and he boasted of collecting a revenue of US $734 million. While the President Bokai complained of broken economy and inflation in his second year in office. In fact, President Bokai failed to provide the economic impacts and benefits of Liberians from the US $210 million financing package or agreement signed for the IMF, the US $20 million special disaster fund, the US $60 million budget support from the World Bank, and the US $40 million from the African Development Bank. The real truth is, the so-called increased revenue collected in 2024 was of benefit to a few in the Bokai's administration, and sadly, did not lead to any benefit to the Liberian people. Another deception by President Bokai in a 2024 report on the country's economy was that his government took decisive action to increase salaries of health workers, the police, and teachers. This is a major falsehood, as there was no increment in the salaries of civil servants throughout 2024. After criticizing the CDC government for the harmonization policy, President Bokai's government has failed to reverse the harmonization policy as President Joseph Bokai promised during his campaign. Simply put, the promise to reverse the harmonization policy is one of the unfulfilled countless campaign promises by President Bokai. How could President Bokai mention the provision of Content and Social Development Fund (CSDF) to all the countries when CSDF funded project cannot be seen across Liberia? 2. Rule of law and governance. Members of the press and fellow Liberians, the rule of law is the foundation and protector of every country's democracy. Contrary to President Bokai's oath to uphold and protect the Liberian Constitution, he continues to disregard the rule of law. The first year of the Joseph Bokai presidency was marked by wanton violations of the rule of law and the Liberian Constitution. The movement for economic empowerment sees it as a mockery for President Joseph Bokai to speak of the rule of law in his sonnet. No president in the history of Liberia has trampled on the rule of law and led the violations of the Liberian Constitution. The President Joseph Bokai did during the first year of the administration, and he continues to violate. The move lacks to reference President Bokai's broad-day support and endorsement of the ultra-virus removal of the elected speaker of the 55th legislature. His broad-day regard for 10 new laws evidenced by the suspension of the executive governor of the Central Bank of Liberia. His deliberate and forceful removal of the chairperson and commissioners of the Liberia Telecommunications Authority, LTA, in open defiance of the ruling of the Honorable Supreme Court of Liberia. The unlawful dismissal of the Deputy Director General of the National Social Security and Welfare Corporation, NASCO. The illegal suspension of the chairperson of the National Elections Commission, which amounts to presidential interference into the administrative and operational management of the electoral body. The removal of the chairperson of the Governance Commission, among others unlawful actions. The inclusion of the rule of law in the goalless arrest agenda of the UP-led government is a sham and pretense. After President Bokai boasted of leading an open and transparent government, President Bokai has been very permissive and lax in the enforcement of the 2014 Code of Conduct for public officials by refusal to take decisive actions against appointed officials of the government who have failed to comply with the Code of Conduct and live out to its asset declaration mandate. While the latest statistics from the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission and the ASCC show that an appreciable number of 889 officials across the legislature, executive, and judicial have declared their assets. The non-compliance of more than 50% of the officials of the Bokai administration, most of whom are in the executive, to declare their assets is in violation of the Code of Conduct. It is shameful for President Bokai to mention the office of Ombudsman when his officials are challenging the workings of the Ombudsman before his very eyes. Despite mandating appointed officials who are caught in violations of the Code of Conduct to resign from party positions, these officials have refused and remain defiant and continue to serve in their party positions and in government. Another hardcore decision from President Bokai Sona is, in just 1 year in office, was the use of private jets over 7 times on both foreign and domestic travel, despite the repeated huge condemnation he made during the October 2023 general and presidential campaign against the former president, His Excellency Ambassador Dr. George Manuel. Considering the private jet condemnation during the last presidential campaign, it is not only a mere hypocrisy, but also callous and heartless for President Bokai to be flying private jets when millions of Liberians go to bed hungry on a daily basis. 3. Corruption and accountability. Members of the press and fellow Liberians, the movement for economic empowerment wants to make it clear that it was categorically a falsehood and a mockery to the Liberian people for President Bokai to speak about corruption fight in Sona. It would have been better for the president to have avoided speaking about corruption because his government has failed in the fight against corruption. Corruption became a normal for the very onset of the Bokai-led government. For instance, the use of over US 15 million of budget expenditure, including the unaccounted for 2.3 million as miscellaneous, and US 1.1 million to purchase vehicles for the president, the vice president, and the placement of US 100,000 on the ATM or debit card. On the debit card for the president, the dubious yellow machine transactions dumped or duped the yellow machine Bokai gate, the alteration of the 2024 national budget, the ultra-virus passage and manipulation of the 2024 national budget. The movement for economic empowerment wants to make it unequivocally clear that contrary to President Bokai's narration of the superficial fight against corruption by the government, the move rather sees Liberia in the hands of ferocious political wolves and greedy squanders who desire to enrich themselves at the detriment of the Liberian people. The interest and welfare of the Liberian people are of no concern to President Bokai and his administration. Instead, they are concerned about amassing wealth for themselves and violating the rule of law. In the last 1 year, the Liberian people have been overwhelmed by discontentment, hopelessness, and frustration. The governance of Liberia in the last 1 year under President Bokai's government has been on the basis of disrespect to the rule of law, incompetence, nepotism, and cronyism. While the state of the nation was an opportunity for President Bokai to build trust and demonstrate leadership, he failed to present any positive governance policy due to his poor governance performance in the last year. Mr. Bokai is brazenly determined to return Liberia to its ugly past, but we in MOVEE and the Liberian people will continue to pursue the rule of law, transparency, and accountability. Accountability and transparency have just been a small screen by the Bokai administration because governance management has been worse than business as usual. How could President Bokai boast of openness, transparency, and accountability when the allocation of US 1.9 million in the 2024 national budget to his office has increased to US 3.4 million in the 2024 national budget, which represents an increment of US 1.5 million. What is the benefit of payroll audits when public sector expenditure on compensation increased from US 297 million in 2023 to US 303 million in the 2024 national budget? 4. Foreign relations. Members of the press and fellow Liberians. President Bokai and his officials leading and managing the country's foreign affairs have failed to maintain Liberia's foreign policy. The president said, and I quote, Liberia's foreign policy and external relations I see many sheikhs that lifted the country's image internationally. The movement for economic empowerment agrees that Liberia's foreign policy and external relations got shifted over the course of the year, not in a positive light, but in a negative one. Instead of maintaining and sustaining Liberia's support to Ukraine, President Bokai government is currently cutting relationship with Russia. Evidence by Liberia's representation and bilateral engagement of the government of the Russian Federation at the 2024 Russia-Africa Summit in Sochi, the Russian Federation. The Bokai administration also compromised Liberia's strong stand against human rights violations in Liberia and around the world, especially against minority groupings. We also witnessed and condemned the government's tacit endorsement of the reckless attack launched on the U.S.-Liberia relations by the government chosen Independence Day orator for 2024. The movement for economic empowerment wondered as to how President Bokai would claim that his government secured endorsement in 2024 from the ECOWAS and the AU for Liberia's bid for a non-permanent seat on the United Nations Security Council for the term 2026-2027, when it is abundantly declared by record that based on the request and lobbying power of His Excellency former President Dr. George Weah and Ambassador D. Maxwell Sakimaya Sini, then Minister of Foreign Affairs and Dean of the Cabinet of the Republic of Liberia, ECOWAS, on July 9, 2023, in Bissau, Guinea-Bissau, unanimously endorsed Liberia's candidature for the non-permanent member seat at the United Nations Security Council for the period 2026-2027, while the Executive Council of the African Union also unanimously endorsed Liberia's bid on July 14, 2023 in Nairobi, Kenya. Liberia has a clean state then. All of what is happening now is just the required formality. Absolutely nothing will and can stop Liberia's bid for non-permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council, where elections scheduled for June 2025. Furthermore, on November 6, 2024, Foreign Minister Sarah Beso-Yanti and the Minister of Education misled President Bokai into launching a fraudulent US $25 million NACOTEL student loan program for Liberian students to do foreign studies in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, otherwise known as STEM and artificial intelligence or AI, in the US and in Canada. Due to the credibility that President Bokai lent to what was deemed to be a non-collateral loan scheme for 250 Liberians, struggling Liberian students were duped into paying US $236 for readiness fee, US $400 for English test, and were asked to present a proof of financial standing in the tune of US $40,000 on best statement. This NACOTEL scholarship was not just another failed promise of President Bokai's purported rescue mission, but a financially victimized many Liberian students. Fact education, members of the press, and fellow Liberians. While the movement for economic empowerment lauded the government for the increment in allocations to basic social services sector, including education, it is sad that said increment of bizarrely is circumstantial. The movement for economic is shocked to hear President Bokai say, and I quote, "We have made steady progress in raising awareness and preventing drug abuse. After 1 year of governance, President Bokai failed to present available policies and steps his government has taken to end illicit drugs and substance abuse. What student programs was President Bokai speaking about when he would not provide sustainable youth programs undertaken by the government in 2024? President Bokai vaguely informed the Liberian people that his government has rehabilitated several array youths and reintegrated them into the society without providing specifics. In fact, where the President Bokai and his government rehabilitated these array youths, we saw no robust stand or clamp down illegal drugs. Rather, 2024 saw the emergence of a new deadly illegal drug called Zumi that is claiming the lives of several array youths. 7. Security. It was of no surprise to the movement for economic in power when President Bokai could not speak on the security sector. Liberia has descended into a police state where the national police is now a force for bad. The monarchy of Liberians in Kinjal, the wave of mysterious death across Liberia, police brutality, and political instability have become a daily reality under President Bokai's administration. Extrajudicial killings are increasingly common, with the disappearance of individuals with no trace of their whereabouts or being murdered in cold blood. There is an alarming wave of lawlessness, with Liberians living in the fear of insecurity and criminal activities on a daily basis. 8. Protection of democracy. Members of the press and fellow Liberians, the Bokai administration has launched an assault on Liberia's democracy, the freedom of speech and the freedom of assembly. It is gravely alarming that over the course of President Bokai's first year in power, his government is clamping down on opposition for holding disagreement with his government. The unlawful dismissal of opposition youths at the Monrovia State Corporation, the MCC, and at all ministry, agencies and commissions in government, across government, due to the political alignment and for the expressions of the political views, police brutality against elected representatives of the people, and peaceful protesters in disagreement with the undemocratic actions of the government. The issue of threats on the lives of judges for judicial decisions, the grave allegations of torture of those in the custody of state security are elements of a tyrannical regime. The movement for economic empowerment has seized a systematic plan by President Bokai to hold political control of the legislative and judicial branches of government. President Bokai is gradually becoming a dictator and tyrant. He is interfering into the independence of the legislature and judicial, instilling fear in opposition figures to state apparatus, and placing a tacit ban on the freedom of assembly, as guaranteed in the 1986 Liberian Constitution. But who wants to inform President Bokai that Liberians, especially the opposition community, will certainly not sit idle and allow him, through his emerging autocratic tendencies, reverse Liberia's high-end democracy and all of its tenets, including human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, the doctrine of separation of powers. Every means within the confines of the rule of law will be used to stop such unconstitutional endeavors by President Bokai. 8. Agriculture. Members of the press and fellow Liberians, during President Bokai 2025 SONA, he failed to state any achievable effort the government has made in improving the agricultural sector. Mr. Boakai's speech gave no hope of revamping and revitalizing the agricultural sector. The 2024-2030 National Agricultural Development Plan of the government titled Liberian Speed Yourself Agenda is another unrealistic document that will remain on the shelves with no achievement. Mr. Boakai's statistics statistical presentation failed to show the practical benefits of the Liberian people of the government undertaking in the agricultural sector. Due to the excessive violations of the rule of law by President Bokai and his government, no investor in the agricultural sector could find Liberia investment friendly. The Sahara Rubber Corporation, SRC, had to put out thanks to JT Rubber LLC for coming to the rescue of hundreds of Liberians who have become jobless and he not taking over the company. President Bokai's promise in his son of creating jobs through the agro sector is another scam. Now, social utilities, members of the press, and fellow Liberians. Social utilities under President Bokai were poorly delivered to the Liberian citizens. Electricity still remains inaccessible to over 85% of the Liberian people. For President Bokai to boast of the government's provisional electricity access to over 30% of Liberians is impossible. Despite progress being made by the Liberia Water and Sewer Corporation, over nearly 90% of Liberians still do not have access to pipeline water. Infrastructure development under President Bokai was a massive failure. After allocating $22 million for road rehabilitation to the Ministry of Public Works, Liberians could not see the impact of such a whooping amount. The roads across Liberia, even in the urban areas, have been a disaster. It is laughable that President Bokai will boast of roadwork when he avoided the use of road to travel and flew by private jet to get to a native Lofa County. Now, the arrest agenda for inclusive development. Members of the press and fellow Liberians. The government's National Development Plan called the arrest agenda for inclusive development, otherwise known as the AARD, is an unrealistic ambitious goal where the implementation budget of $8.4 billion with 70% of the funding dependent on foreign partners. With 70% of the required $8.4 billion dependent on foreign partners, the agenda is off for a failure. Members of the press, fellow Liberians, the movement for economic empowerment lacks to sum up that President Joseph Boakai 2025 State of the Nation Address was a false narrative embedded with deliberate flaws, deception, and a hopeless outlook for Liberians. The SONA failed to state definite socio-economic achievements by the government in terms of job creation and poverty reduction. After 1 year, President Bokai could not provide any implementation rate or path for the rescue mission to the benefit of the Liberian people. Recommendations. Given the lifting of government excesses of President Bokai's administration over the last 1 year, the movement for economic empowerment recommends the following. 1. That the Bokai government increase funding to the Internal Audit Agency, the IAA, to curb corruption, hindering ministry, agencies, and commission across government. 2. That the Bokai administration abandons the growing clampdown on opposition leaders and their partisans and emulate the enviable democratic credentials of His Excellency former President George Malawia. 3. That the movement for economic empowerment once again calls on the Supreme Court of Liberia to give priority to hearing and ruling into the bill of information far before it by Honorable Councillor J. Fanati Kofa, Speaker of the House of Representatives, to avoid the political tension at the House of Representatives. 4. That President Boakai desists from just regarding the rule of law and violations of the Liberian Constitution and strictly adhere to the rule of law and uphold the Liberian Constitution in adherence to his oath of office. 5. The President Joseph Bokai focuses on the bread and butter issues of the economy, which hinges on the livelihood of the Liberian people. 6. That the Bokai's administration should do away with bad governance and tread on the path of good governance, promote transparency and accountability. 7. That the Bokai's administration attaches seriousness to the fight against corruption in government by removing all appointees indicted into the General Audit Commission audit reports and those who are under Liberia anti-corruption and LACC investigation for the government. 8. That the government of Liberia, especially the Liberian legislature, begin to review the performance of all consensual agreements with the aim of ensuring that jobs allotted in those agreements for Liberians are given to Liberians only. 9. That President Bokai convenes a national reconciliation conference with members and leaders of opposition political parties in order to alleviate the growing political tension in Liberia. 10. That President Bokai stops interfering into the workings of the legislative and judicial branches of government, as this has a propensity to revert Liberia to a junta state. Thank you.
That was the voice of Jamal Edison, the MOVEE Secretary General.